you worked in a newsroom.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about that. What was that like? I mean, a lot of folks won't be able to relate or talk to somebody who's actually worked in an actual, I know it was local news for wherever you work. Where did you work?
Okay, so I jokingly refer to it as my tour of duty because when you work in news, you tend to move around a lot in order to move up in position and in station size. And so while I was still a Chippewa at CMU, I started working at WLNS in Lansing. So got my start here in Lansing. From there, I went to WNEM in Saginaw for actually not even a few years. I was there for a short time and then graduated from college, went off to Richmond, Virginia for a few years, jumped from there to the 13th largest market in the country, which is Minneapolis, was there for 5 years, went from there to Indianapolis, so one Appalus to another, getting slowly closer to home, and was there for a few years, and then decided at that point that my time in the fast-paced pressure cooker environment was coming to an end. I always knew that I wasn't going to do it forever. I decided that, okay, what's the next step? I wanted to be back in Michigan for the first time since leaving. I was like, nah, I really want to be back in Michigan. Those pure Michigan commercials get to you. Family's here. So moved back to Michigan and actually ended my career, my TV career, the same station where I started at WLNS in Lansing. So 12-year span, several stations, several states.
Well, I mean, and a lot of folks, they usually relate to the on-air personalities as the one that jumping around and they're going from station to station. What did you do?
Yeah, good question. So I was a producer for several years, and then I was an executive producer for the majority of my career. So that, in short, means that I was somewhere between the person you see on camera and the janitor, right? Like, who really knows what a producer does? So the producers, the show producers, each newscast generally has its own producer. They're in charge of finding stories, selecting which stories are going to go in the newscast, writing the stories, coming up with all of the graphic elements to support the stories, everything from the graphics you see over the anchor's shoulders to working with reporters and their photographers to decide, how those stories are going to go. But they actually assemble and write and put together the entire newscast. And then the executive producer oversees that entire process, oversees multiple shows, works with those producers on their shows, and then works with the reporters who are out there gathering the elements they need to put their stories together.
What'd you like the best?
Telling people's stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, every single day was completely different, which is a good thing and a bad thing because it's not like you can come in and have a slower day if you don't have coffee, right? So it's a lot of work, but at the end of the day, you're telling stories that make a difference. Sometimes, that's another way that I think reporters often get, and the media gets a bad rap, is, they kind of, especially on TV portrays them as like getting in people's faces after tragedy happens. And yes, that happens. But really the people who are dedicated and care about it are there getting the story to share that person's tragedy, to, like after you've experienced some sort of loss, many people want to share that. They want to talk about their loved one, or they want to help make a difference so that whatever it was doesn't happen to someone else. And so those are the stories that we really focused on telling, especially on the local level, where you are sharing stories that make a difference. One example, I was in Minneapolis when the 35W bridge collapsed and 13 people died, hundreds were injured. It was this, incredibly horrible tragedy that happened at the height of rush hour. Bridges aren't supposed to just fall down. This was a major interstate, and it was a bridge that I drove every single day to get from Minneapolis to St. Paul, where I lived and then where I worked. You have to take a bridge because the river's there, Mississippi River's there. And so you're living the story that you're telling. And so we were on the air for 27 hours straight. It was just this unbelievable, it's an adrenaline rush. You don't stop because there are people calling in to the newsroom, trying to find information, looking for loved ones. Someone didn't make it home. Were they on the bridge? It's just everything you can imagine, getting that information out about the Red Cross. And then we, of course we had the president actually flew in and was there. And so we broadcast that entire thing live, that weekend. We have all of the national networks come in and converge, and they need your assistance because on the local level, you have all of the resources. But at the end of the day, you're telling the story that is impacting your community, and you're making a difference in getting that information out to people. That's why I did what I did for so long.